All
Go ahead.
right. All right. Let me bring the introduction. So, welcome to the HEALn HelpDesk. I'm your host, Joe from HEALn Help. Jay is out for this session. She's on a birthday weekend, having a good fun time. So, she will be back next week. And I do have my co host. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm just Antoine with adrulix.com. We are excited to continue to explore this topic on family ties and just happy to be here. Looking forward to a great discussion. Want to remind everyone to visit healing.help. Um, and also it's in the description, the rolling lower thirds, and also adrulix.com. And whatever media you see this on, please like the script, subscribe, and share.
Yes, subscribe and share. And I want to just read our disclaimer real quick. Heal and Health is not composed of licensed therapists and does not provide medical advice. We do not prescribe medication, provide psychedelics, nor facilitate the use of psychedelics. Our services focus on wellness and support, but do not substitute for professional medical care. So,
Awesome. Awesome.
with that out the way, let's see here. Let's go into our topic. I guess we gonna roll with this. So, our discussion for today is family ties, breaking the cycle of fatherless homes that y'all can see down there in the ticker. And how you want to start this off today, Antoine?
So, when you think about breaking the cycle, what comes to mind for me is not perpetuating what has happened, right? We
Correct.
don't want it to spin around the block. So if that means that there has to be some healing somewhere, okay, to break the
Hmm.
cycle, right? Because otherwise, if you're hurt, you're going to hurt, right? And that cycle is going to
Yes.
continue. If you're a father, um, or you're a male, and then you were in a fatherless home, then you may um, perpetuate the same cycle, right? Abandon your kids. If you are a child, a female child, and your father was not there, you may choose the wrong spouse and they end up leaving you, or the wrong partner and they end up leaving you, and you still have a fatherless home. And so to get to the root of that, I believe that we really have to talk about the healing process, and us realizing that, hey, I cannot carry this on to the next generation.
Okay. So basically, as we're saying, the healing has to start first, so that we can understand our past trauma from being in a father's home, so we can, I assume, learn to not just accept but also to understand, and knowing also could that go with like the possible triggers and behavior, like you were explaining earlier, on understanding why people would act the way they act coming from a father's home.
Right. So yeah, we talked about some things. They, if you are in a fatherless home, statistics says that you are more likely to be um, in a troubled state in life, right?
Right.
And the statistics are higher for those that were in households where fathers were present than absent. And so if fathers were present, they did better. The children fared better. If the father was absent, then
Hmm.
they did worse in society as a whole. Okay. And
Okay.
so what we want to do is start, if you were in, so for example, I was in a fatherless home.
Right.
I was raised by my mom. My dad was around, but he didn't live in the home. And so I didn't see
Mhm.
him on a consistent basis. So a lot of things that I could have learned from him just by observing, I missed that
Right.
because I wasn't with him. I spent some summers with him, like a couple of summers in his household uh, when he was in a certain marriage, and so that was fun. I had some other sisters and as well,
Mhm.
a little bit older than me, and I wasn't the oldest at that point. But
Right.
in my mom's home, I was the oldest, and so um, him being absent, I think that relationship, I have to, we as a people that have been in fatherless homes have to figure out what effect that had on me.
Okay.
And I don't like myself. I like to dig back in trauma if I don't
Mhm.
have.
Right.
And so I want to explain what I mean by that. So if, for example, if I normally just deal with what's present, right? Because
Okay.
whatever in my past, trauma in my past is going to show up in my present.
Right.
And so I don't go looking for it, it's going to show up, right? And when it shows up, it'll show up in anger, it'll show up in frustration, it will show
Mhm.
up in uh, behaviors that I have that continue to cause me to go into bad light, in a sense. You know what I'm
Okay,
saying?
I understand that. Yeah.
And so when I start, if I'm an observer of my thoughts, feelings, and emotions, when things come up, I'm able to see why did I behave that way, or
Right.
why am I feeling a certain way, and then that may cause me to go and dig a little deeper and look at some things that has happened in my past. Okay, but it's
All
not
right.
necessarily a journey, and it may not even take me back to my father. It may take me back to another relationship or something like that, or another trauma, but just dealing with things as they come.
Right. So you could say like it will take you back to different points in time in your life, but not necessarily lead back to your father. It could be dealing with a total different relationship or friendship or even something that might have happened at work, possibly.
Correct. Correct. Yes. And sometimes it may lead back to that, right? To
Right.
my father. And so, for example, my father, he has been married 3 times. I'm just got my business all in the street and his business as well. But and I've been married 4 times. And
Okay.
so um is that a parallel, is that a reason? It could be,
Possibly.
possibly. So, but I know one thing is that I didn't have that role model, right? Of
Right.
a parent, a husband sticking with their spouse
Right.
through hell and high water, right? To death do
Hmm.
us part. And so I saw him bail out of his marriages,
Right.
and I followed suit, not per se because he did, but I didn't
Hmm.
have a model for the other, right?
Okay. I understand. I understand that.
And so that could have played a part, because if I saw it demonstrated, I could have said, "Hey, Dad, I'm going through this with my spouse at the time, and what are your thoughts?
Right.
How did you do it? How did you stick through it?" Right? Um, and so those type of things you kind of miss out on, if that makes sense. Because you just don't have that role model, and we just have to deal with stuff like that.
And that kind of brings me to like, because I grew up with a dad in my home, father in my home, but again, I think I expressed in the last session that he was present, but then he wasn't present. Not saying he wasn't physically there. Is like you mentally checked out. So I could say possibly for me at that point where he mentally checked out, I was looking for that parental figure. Even though I had my parental figure there, it's like I was more like, I gotta say, like, hey, why aren't you handling this? It's not being like a anger type of thing, but it's like I'm just a kid. You're adult. This is something you have been handling, and now I am forced to figure it out because he mentally checked out.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, it kind of rolls into the next thing I want to bring up. So when things like that happen, what type of, well, I could say the type of support that kids in fathers' homes or maybe parents are just dealing with so much trauma themselves, what are you supposed to do at that point? Do you reach out to family? Of course, that'll be the first thing. But as a young person at that time, what would be the avenues? Because it's like I don't know who to reach out to. But now when we're older, it's like, of course, there's mentors,
Right.
and
And so,
go ahead.
no, go ahead.
And
What
I
you
was
gonna
about to say, for my personal experience, I heard the thing about mentors, but didn't know how to reach out to them or anything like that. So I think that's something else too to consider.
For sure, for sure. So that's why, platforms like this is so important, because social media is a powerhouse, right? And has great
Yes.
influence. And now things are more susceptible, or accessible, I should say,
Mhm.
to people to that want help, right? We have
Right.
YouTube and things like that. You can Google search, you can ask AI, and so it's becoming more available, the help. But I think that the the structure in schools,
Right.
our education system, should be a place where it starts first. Well, not I shouldn't say
Okay.
first, but it should start, right? It's one of the places
Right.
where we could start helping the kids be mentally prepared for things that they don't know how to handle and where to go when those things happen.
Okay.
Because you're in school, right? You're going to
Yep.
school every day, and you're dealing with all this stuff at home, but you don't know who to reach out. And sometimes the teachers are not engaged enough to be like, hey, I see a change in your behavior, what's going on? Instead, they see a change in your behavior, and now you're at an alternative school without even that
Real quick.
question, right?
It's
Without
true.
a question being asked, like what's
So
going on, or really taking the time, because or or those relationships haven't been established between the teacher and the student, so the student don't feel comfortable in sharing what's going on at the home.
see, that's what I was about to ask. So would you say that some of the I can know from me definitely when I grew up, some of my teachers weren't equipped with that with those tools. That's the word I'm looking for. They weren't equipped with the tools to recognize, hey, something might be going on, and be able to like talk, give the like you said, the safe space to talk to understand what's going on versus why you acting up in my class, why you doing this and that. Now you in detention, like you said, alternative school, just like that.
Right. Right. And so, you're right. And then we do have counselors at school, and sometimes the counselors are tasked with other things that they have to do, which kind of negates their responsibility of getting involved and engaged with the students
Right.
population, or the student population is too great for the counselor. It's only one counselor, but you got 1,000 students, at
That's
a
right.
campus. So there's a lot of things, and so having a curriculum where we deal with social emotional behavior and teaching kids at a young age on how to handle things that's going on, who to reach out to when you have a problem that you don't know how to solve. You know, what
Okay.
resources are at your fingertip, right? We not only
Hmm.
need to rely on schools, but we need to rely on other organizations such as churches and things of that nature to
Right.
also be an aid to this epidemic. um,
Yeah.
in well, I don't know if it's extreme, but I know last time we talked about 25% of kids, 1 out of 4 kids, um, grow up in a fatherless home.
Correct.
And so, and then we're not counting the ones that are there but absent,
Right.
right? They didn't checked out, right? They got their own
Yes.
things going, or they just come home, eat, and sleep, and are
Pretty
disconnected
much.
to the family, right? They feel their only role is to provide for the family
Yep.
or
And
finances
you're
to the.
right. And so because the thing, if I'm thinking back, is like when going saying we could the process could start in school. So would you think because I know you said with school the tools that we could possibly say our schools could integrate is a better curriculum on how to deal with, I guess we want to say, like life events, or more what's going, like, to understand life events, I guess, more equip them for life just in case something happens. So I know that would be a great thing for kids that's grown up in a fatherless home, or again, kids who grow up with the parents but they're just not mentally present to, I guess, teach their kids on how to navigate life at a certain point.
Right.
uh,
And a lot of the parents don't know. Like they don't
right.
have a clue, right? Because they're living in what was passed down to them. And so to break the cycle, there has to be somebody to intervene with help and strategies to um, teach people how to deal with their stuff and how to deal with life.
Right.
And so,
And what
yeah,
I'll
go
say,
ahead.
would that been like the Boys and Girls Club at one point, or maybe they still do, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, I wasn't a part of the Boys and Girls Club, but I was a part of the Boy Scouts, and you know, hmm, they really didn't talk about emotional health, right?
They sure
Because
did
that's
not.
really we really dealing with. It's really social emotional health, right? What do I do when I got stuff? How do I handle stuff that I don't know how? What do I do with it? What do I do with my
Right.
emotions? What do I do with my feelings? And that's why we see, kids with, the suicide rate high, the drug usage
Hmm.
high, the alcoholism is high
It's
in
real high.
and so vaping and all this kind of stuff. They're looking for ways to escape
Yes.
what's going on, and they don't have healthy um we're not teaching them healthy ways to handle what's going on in their life.
Right. It's that avoidance, like I said, escape. Because I know I've done that when, like I said, when my parent checked out. It's like dealing with so much of being forced to be adult and understand what's going on in this world. Being young, I did find an escape, and luckily, well, I guess luckily, but my escape was just gaming. So I was a gamer, but I also like to buy a lot of electronics and sometimes clothes and music. So my escaping was going playing games. Hey, you're escaping reality. At the
Yeah.
same time, the avoidance was dealing with me buying everything. I would just like, I'll buy this and this just to feel like, all right, I feel good, and put some headphones on and play some music, and you're gone. You're just like, hey,
Oh, no.
I just zoned out. And I used to do that a bunch in class too, as well. I used to zone out in class, and again, bringing it back to being in school with that, the teachers, they thought I was just like, "Are you okay? Are you tired?" Because I was sleeping in class too. I did that a lot. In the back of class, I was out, but then I
Yeah.
wake up and like, "What did I miss?" Trying to catch up. So that's the one thing that I do think needs to be out there, especially since we got these platforms. It's good to let people also know, give that awareness that these are signs and things that kids and adults also they go through. Because I know a couple of people that just check out as adult because either the stress is too high at work or work and home or just life in general, and
Right.
that's where you see the substance abuse, just sometimes it's not even caring. Yeah, you just here. Um,
Just existing, right?
you're just existing, and it's crazy how much that has increased. Also, like over the years.
And it's going to continue to get worse, and that's why we're doing this. And I'm glad to partner with Heal and Help because, at a Drulix, our goal is to create an educational system where we focus on things like this, as well as getting into the family, because we have one thread with education or sector that will deal with this, as well as family itself. We're just going to hone in on family, what's going on with the family, instead of sweeping things, like you were just saying, sweeping things under the rug, not dealing
Right.
with our issues, really bringing all things out on and putting it on the table and having those crucial conversations on how to handle what's happening, right? And
Right.
so if the adults, sometimes the adults are too stubborn to give that time to help, unless there's something traumatic that happened. Um, but the children are very much more open to getting, if it's not too late, right? I don't
Right.
think it's actually too late, but I think sometimes you have walls that have been built that you have to overcome before you can really
Yes.
access that child, because they just built up walls to protect themselves, right? And they don't want
Yes.
to let anybody in, um,
Yep.
because they don't want to let that out. They don't know how to let it out. And so just having programs in place where we can give kids and adults outlets and say, hey, this is how. So like if they're imprisoned, right, those are great
Okay.
times. You got a captive audience. That's a great time to really help them deal with their stuff, right?
Right.
I've done prison ministry for over 20 years,
That's a long
and
time.
so yes, I love it, and really helping people deal with stuff. But I'm 54, and a lot of stuff I'm just learning. I'm just
Right.
learning at 54 some of this stuff, like how to deal with stuff, how to deal with me, who I am. And so um, I can understand why people are where they are and what they're doing, why they're doing what they're doing,
Right.
right?
And
Uh,
I'd had a conversation about that today. Is like, since we've been doing the podcast and getting more into these topics like this, I had to think back and was like, you know what? I kind of understand, like you were saying, where people are coming from or acting the way they act now. Because at first you would think, oh, they just got some issues and problems. They crazy. First thing we say, they crazy. But what if they're not crazy? What if the actions that they're doing, the way they're acting, is based off somehow some childhood trauma or life trauma as an adult, that they just built up the protective walls, like you said, and don't know how to let it down, or some people are just not willing because they're too scared again to be vulnerable or to even acknowledge that they have this issue. But some people don't even know either at the same time.
Right, exactly. So mental health, right? It's been a therapy has been a taboo in some communities, right? And
Yes.
so we have to let people know that therapy is not a taboo. It's something that we all need. That it's something that we all have to have in our life if we're going to thrive instead of just existing, because a lot of people are just existing. They don't know what to deal with it, and so then they turn to different things, coping mechanisms, right? I never
Right.
wanted to be by myself, so I jumped from one relationship to the next relationship to the next relationship, and this is really the first time in my adulthood that I've been by myself.
Okay.
You know, at 54, it's like, wow, you're this is your first time? What's going on?
It's
And
like something new. It's like, oh man.
right. And so, and if I was without myself, by myself, I was always engaged with somebody else, right? In a
Right.
serious relationship or trying to gain a serious relationship. So I really was running from myself.
Okay. I have something similar to that because with me, I would attempt to get a relationship, but then probably this is my old me now, y'all. Uh, the old me, like I said, halfway through, maybe like I'll say maybe 3 months, 3 or 4 months, I would create some type of, I'm not gonna say turmoil or whatever, but I'll create something that I can escape because I felt at that point I'm getting too close. Like I don't at that point in time, I want to be in a relationship. I want to be close, but I said not too close. You know what I'm saying? It's like you moving toward hot now. Now we're gonna stay cold, medium, in the warm waters right here where I'm comfortable. And once you start getting toward like, oh yeah, it's getting hot. Now I gotta go.
Right,
I make
right,
something.
right.
And I did learn that came from a childhood trauma.
Yes.
And I sat there and thought, I was like, dang, I just self exploded. And I'm like, where is this coming from? Because it showed up in about 3 or 4 relationships. I'm like, nah, I need to stay single and figure what's going on. Because I'm tired of dipping out when it's getting good. Because
Right.
it's not just hurting me, but I'm also hurting that other person. And
Exactly.
now they're gonna take that trauma of that I gave them and possibly keep on spreading it.
Perpetrating it, right? Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I one of the reasons I kept getting married is because I didn't want to live in sin, even though I was living in sin, but I didn't want to live there way too long, right? So I would
Right.
have a premarital sex and things of that nature, and I shouldn't have been. However, I didn't want to stay in that situation, so I end up marrying them instead of saying, you know what, I need to stop. Let me find out who I am, which
Right.
I'm doing now, right? Find out what
Right.
I making sure that I'm healthy enough to have a relationship, a serious relationship, and then I'm able to see who this person really is, and if I'm willing to um, take on their stuff as well, right? Because
Right.
I now
Mm-hmm.
being more aware of who I am, I don't want to
Right.
go be with somebody that's totally clueless of who they are, right?
Oh yes.
Because it's going to be a tug of war. It's going to be a tug of war because I'm really exposed and I'm having these things, and they're like, now if they're wanting to change and upgrade their lives, right, and
Right.
heal their past and their traumas and become a person of that's constantly self-developing. Let me share, Joe, statistics that I read.
Yep. Go ahead and share.
Only 10% of the world's population
Okay.
consistently self development.
Wow.
Only
I
10%.
didn't know that.
Yeah, so 1 out of 10 people only consistently self develop. And so that means that a lot of people are not trying to figure out what's going
Man.
on with me, right? Trying to figure out what's going on with themselves. And
Right.
so that has to happen if we're going to break the cycle of fatherless homes. People have to learn how to deal with their personal issues, right? Deal with their
Okay.
trauma, letting things go. I was talking to a person today, and they were talking about how they were having some issues with um, their spouse, their ex-spouse, right?
Okay.
Um, and so it it was kind of wild because there's a event coming up like 3 months down the road, right?
Right.
But they're so in turmoil because they don't want that event. They're excited about the event, but they're not excited about seeing the person.
Oh wow. Now. Okay. That's different.
So because the event is with somebody, it's for somebody that they have mutual interest in.
Oh, I see where you're going. Okay.
And so she doesn't, or he doesn't want to be in the presence of that person again, because just like, ugh, make my skin crawl. Like, I don't want to be a part of that, right?
Right.
And so I had an opportunity to talk to him and say, hey, what's really going on with you? You know, you need that's that's a sign that you haven't healed. There's
Yes.
still some issues going on right there, right?
Right.
You want to be able to monitor your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And that emotion that you're feeling is saying that, hey, I'm not over this relationship. And guess what? That's showing up in other areas of your life.
Yes. It'll leak over into other areas for sure.
Yes. And so you're having anxiety about this date that's 3 months away, but you're having anxiety about it now, and you're feeling the pressure of it now. And that means that, hey, you need to let that go. And it's a
Right.
practice. It's a practice. And so we as people, we have to practice letting things go. When we feel like we're coming into an emotional um fit in a sense, right?
Right.
Because we're emotional creatures. We're going to
Yes.
feel different emotions, and that's nothing wrong with that, feeling those
Right.
emotions. So I wanted to put that out there. There's nothing wrong with feeling emotions. What you do with the emotions is what matters. So if it
Okay.
costs you to go get a drink, right, and drown yourself in the bottle, right? It's all
Hmm.
right. It's all right to have a drink, but you can't let the drink have you, right? And then
That's true.
you go out and be promiscuous, or it causes you to do something else, or spend money that you shouldn't have spent, or just it leads you down a darker path. But had you really dealt with that feeling properly,
Okay.
then it leads you into a path of self-destruction. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes, that makes sense. And I did have a question for you too.
Okay.
Um, so what would you think? Because I know we said for kids or young people, individual, and young people, if they wanted to find those resources, we did say it could start within the school, it could start within the churches, some maybe the community, but for I guess trying to make sure I got my words right. For it to be able to start at home within the community, what do you think what tools need to be brought to the community? Like, does it I know we need more awareness, but do you think some type of program that might need to be programs created, or maybe if a community is heavily built around the church community, do you think It would be beneficial for churches to have a program in there for kids that boys and girls that might have came from fatherless home or has that father and mother. I do both of them in the household, but both of them present mentally.
Right.
Because I also know that there are could be some groups around the neighborhood as well. But I just want to get your thoughts on that too.
Well, I think it needs to be a campaign, very intentional, right? Around social emotional um, practices, right?
Right,
And teaching kids. So whether it's in church, because I feel this way, and that our whole society is dysfunctional, and we're
right,
calling things that's abnormal normal, right? Things that's right
correct,
wrong, and what's wrong right. And so um, that that situation, so we need to attack it from all fronts, right? School, home, anytime somebody's, you hate that trauma has to, I mean, or something tragic has to happen, but those are good places to, get involved. But the reason why I
right.
say it's school, because school is mandatory, right?
Okay,
It's mandatory that children go to school. And so if you start there and start getting them emotionally healthy, and then they start changing or feeling some type of way or how to handle things, and then they start talking about their parents, and then probably getting their parents involved as well, and just having those resources available, at churches. A lot of times the churches don't want to talk about these things. They got other agendas,
right,
right? But it, the main agenda should be on the welfare of its constituents,
correct.
and so emotional intelligence need to be at the heart of their curriculum as well in the church,
Right. I
because
agree on that.
I mean, if it's the church, it should be based on love, and if you really love, then you gotta help me be able to fulfill that love or feel the love by providing me
Mhm.
resources that's going to assist me in dealing with what I'm dealing with, and put me in a better place because you
Right.
care. But
Okay.
a lot of the people in church are broken, and they don't understand, right? And so it would be nice if our government said, hey, these things are mandatory. Because they tell us what we shouldn't do or we
That's
can't do,
one thing they do. Yeah.
and but they don't say, hey, these are what you really need to do to make you whole and healthy. And so I
Right.
don't really want to get on that soapbox of our society, because it's the things they
Yeah,
do
it's
and allow
touch and go.
to us, it's just a bad situation. So and it doesn't, the things that's being done don't um facilitate a place where fathers can stay with their families.
Yeah, because that's like you said, that's a lot with that subject as it is too.
Yeah, so it's a big problem, but I believe that if we take the grassroots approach and we start with the children and we start providing them resources at schools, and then at churches, in the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, all the community centers, um, I was thinking of you know as well as if people are on drugs and they want to get free from drugs, teaching them
Right.
about that. I mean, I think some of that goes into the drug programs and stuff like that, but we
Uh
need
huh.
it more readily. you know it just
Yeah.
needs to be more readily, and definitely in institutions like incarcerated institutions where people have made bad choices and put them in a place where, hey, and they're going to be released back into society. Hey,
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
I need you whole, right? And you got children.
Yeah.
And then I want to give you some skills so you can teach your children. Put some books in your hand, put some programs, have it on TV, have it in social media. Really bring some exposure to how to deal with your drama and trauma. instead,
Yeah. See.
instead of highlighting it like, oh, that girl went out and the video goes viral, right?
Yep.
Because somebody slapped somebody or cursed somebody out or did something ungodly to them, and that's a a meme or something, but
Yep.
it really shows us, hey, there's something going on. That person who's acting like this is hurting, and
Yes.
they're acting out because they don't know how to handle their emotions.
Okay. And I see that because I'm understanding why you said it should be mandatory in schools, because usually that's when the cycle will get broken. Because when you were saying, I was thinking about that. I said, yeah, that is good to have it mandatory, required. However, just to have some courses and curriculum around that, because that will help the next generation break that cycle, and the next, and that's also how it feeds somewhat back into the community too, as well.
It
So
will.
I definitely understand that one. And again, with it not, I feel like I wish there was we got our platform, Heal and Help, and the Drulix. I wish it was developed. We had these developed back then, because I think platforms like this is amazing to bring that awareness to the community and people, instead of when something bad happens. Unfortunately, I hate to say, sometimes something bad has to happen to make that change. I wish it wasn't like that all the time. Like you said, I wish it's like, hey, people can realize that, you know what, we all have this trauma. And I want to give an example, like I said, maybe a death in the family. Maybe that death in that family, maybe it's one of the relatives, siblings, or whoever is so connected to that individual that their death really was a traumatic experience. And sometimes, not all the time, when something like that happens, family is there to say, hey, we see a different change in you and all this, and hey, give some things to get help. Other times it's like, oh, we know that you're sad, I'm sad. But again, you say the adults, they don't know what to do with that emotion, since we were basically taught that hey, at that age, emotion is a sign of weakness. Let's just say how it is. That's what's been taught. Emotion is a sign of weakness. And like I said, you're 54. It took me up until 40 to say, you know what, my emotion is not a sign of weakness. This is, we are emotional beings. I'm allowed to express and be as emotional as I want, instead of holding that in. And then where is it going to go? What is that really going to turn into, holding all this in?
Right.
Because again, that's another. Can you say that that individual or people are creating a new trauma by holding all that emotional state inside them?
They're walking trauma, right? They
Mhm.
it's just a accident waiting to happen, because that's going to explode on something or someone, and if it or implode in you where you don't want to live anymore because it's too much to
Right.
bear, right? And so, um, yes, we have to create those avenues so that we can really uh, we don't see each other. Our society, we're not taught to see each other. If you go out to a restaurant, you see families sitting there and they're not really talking to each other.
You're
They may be
right.
eating, but they're on their phone, right? they're
Yep.
they're not they're not seeing each other. They're so tapped into social media. They're so tapped into whatever they got going on. We're not, kids are banned to their room for
Yep.
hours and they have their media device, their tablet, right?
Right.
And they're being taught by the internet and what's promoted there and what's funny and what's lying. I guess he got kicked off. Hopefully he can get back on. So it's very important that we get to a place where we are putting um, making aware things that's happening in our communities, things that's happening in our homes, things that's happening, and how to deal with those things, how to deal with them, how to get um, healing and see a way out. And so it's so important that we put ourselves in that position. I'm gonna see. I think he's trying to get back on. Let's see here. There we go.
Okay,
All
there
right,
we go.
you're back.
Yeah, I lost connection. I'm like, did I disconnect or you disconnect?
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but I'm glad you're back. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, I was just saying that we just have to provide a way of escape, and we got to flood the media with that. And so with the Drulix and what we're trying to do, where our goal is to create a community of love
Right.
where you can find the resources and they're readily available, and whatever avenue you come into our ecosystem,
Uh-huh.
that you'll feel the love and then you'll get access to the other resources that we have. And so you're like, man,
Okay.
I like what they're doing. Who is this?
Right.
What is this? Drew, what? And so and then really tap into what we got going on. And our platform is geared to learn to earn. And so if you
Right.
take a class where it's talking about emotional intelligence and you take a quiz, then you earn currency by doing that.
Okay.
And so you can go buy you a lunch, because you took the
Ah,
class.
that's
You
nice.
can buy some things that's also offered on the platform from the companies that's attached to the ecosystem. And so and then the money can be transferred to other things that's outside the ecosystem. So that's our goal at Adrulix, is to really be a place where love, we are freeing people to love,
Right.
right? That's our goal. We're showing you how to become free, and then when you're free you can really love. Because if you're bound, you don't, like you said, hey, I'm not letting you in, I'm not letting you in, you're getting too
That's
close,
right.
right? Because I'm hurting inside, I can't let all this hurt out, I don't know
Right.
what to do with it. And so you're making me feel a way that causes me to be able to, I'm gonna have to expose some of this stuff that's going on
Yes.
inside of me. And I'm scared because I don't know how to deal with it. And I'm not sure that you know how to deal with it. So let me run. Right. And of course,
Yes.
all of this is happening subconsciously. We don't know why, but
Hmm.
it's happening.
You're
Right.
right.
I didn't know why I was running from one relationship to the next relationship to the next relationship, but until I was aware, like, hey, bro, when you gonna get it together, you know, and
Uh-huh.
and get the tools. And so, and it wasn't until I started reading and came to the place where I started evaluating who I am as a person, the things that I got going on in my life, my what my thoughts. So I want to say this: thoughts lead. So there may be an event, right?
Right.
Event causes you to have thoughts, and that
Right.
thoughts normally they produce feelings, and then
Yes.
feelings produce actions, and then actions produce results. And so when
Right.
I learned that, I was like, wow. So if I want to change my results, I have to monitor my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions. Make sense?
Okay.
And then I can
Yep.
start evaluating, hey, this event occurred. I started thinking this way. Why did I start thinking that way?
Right.
And when I started thinking that way, it had me to start feeling this way. And then because I was feeling this way, this is what I did.
See, that makes a lot of sense due to how we are when we don't realize the actions that we're doing. Like I said, when I was doing the escapism from the relationships, we don't think about that because, like you said, it happens so quickly. It's like how you want to think about it. Say, man, I need to get out of here. That's like a second nature. That's like automatic. You don't even. It's just like, yeah, I need to go. And then if you don't realize you're stuck in that cycle, but the moment, like you said, that you realize, like, wait, I'm doing the escapism thing again. Hold on. How long have I actually been doing? Then that's where it comes into play. Like that, I'm pretty sure that person would go back and say, I've been doing this for a long time. But
Yeah.
I also think at that point, it's whether they choose to fully address it and some don't. And that's really what I think that um, is a because there's a lot of unhealed people out here. I was going to say that. And I think that could be one reason why they're still unhealed because they don't either want to address it because we're talking about the different part of knowing but not wanting to address it or just like maybe I'm just comfortable in this space right now and
Yeah,
don't
because
push it
it's
off.
work. It's work, right? It's
Yes.
work to, and it can be painful to know that, hey, I'm this type of person, and so we try to escape that, like, well, I'm gonna blame it on alcohol because I was drunk. That's why I did what I did, or I was
Right.
high. That's why I did what I did, or I was depressed. That's why I did what I did. And so all these things now become a scapegoat and an excuse to live in the dysfunction that we're living in. So everybody's not ready. And that's
Right.
why I think that kids they're the most ready, right? They're
Yes.
open to change and learning still new things and new avenues, a new way of dealing with things, Um, and so I was just thinking about the "Say No to Drugs" when I was coming up,
Right.
No to Drugs campaign that was initiated by the government. Say no to lying. Say no to alcoholism and drug abuse, right?
Right.
And really dealing with those things at the root of the matter instead of putting a Band-Aid on it, right?
Yes.
don't I don't want to know, why did I get this? Why did I go to a place where I had to get hurt before I realized that this is no good for me? And where did that stem from?
That's
What
a big
caused me
one.
to make that choice, right? And
Right.
so that and we're never going to break this cycle of fatherless homes if we don't get to the root of those problems. Like, why am I here?
See, it all leads back to that. It's like it's wild when you really think about it. Like all this trauma led back to what happened in that home. Was the father, like I said, the top of his fathers, but were they there? They not there? Were they just maybe in and out? Because you have fathers that they may not be present in the home and somewhere else, but how do they interact? Because they're separate like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because some really do are, even though they might interact with their child still fatherless, depending on how the relationship is.
Yes, and we thank God for the other people that step in when the
Oh
father is
yes,
not
can't
there, right?
forget that.
the grandfathers, the uncles, the friends, the church members, or whatever, the Boy Scout leader, the Girl Scout leader, people, the teacher, um, stepping in and filling that position, because we know it does happen. It doesn't happen as
Yes.
much as we need it to, but it is happening. And so we just need to make it a safe space. Like, hey, if we know that 1 out of 4 children are fatherless, are
Right.
living in a fatherless home, and they are more at risk at this, let's put something in place.
Okay.
Let's put something that in place. So if I'm a teacher, I got a room of 20 kids. There are at least 5 of them that probably don't have a father in the home,
Right.
right? And so that I need to address that, and that needs to be one of the questions I need to ask. One of the first questions is that, and if you just really be honest about it, just putting it in the curriculum. Like, we start the day with our pledge, right? The Pledge of Allegiance. We used
Right.
to
I
start
remember that.
as well. Um, and so we can add some social emotional practices that takes about a minute or 2 minutes, and kind of interweave it into the system of the curriculum, right? When a
Okay.
child is not doing what they're supposed to do, showing them, like, hey, this is how you handle your social interaction with people, by monitoring your emotions and knowing your emotions and putting a label on your emotions, and not allowing your emotions to lead you into a bad space. It's okay
Right.
to have emotions, but it can't allow it to lead you into a bad space.
Okay. I understand all that right there. I
Yes,
think this
yes,
is a really good topic because I know there's more we can expound more on it. Like I know it's for a fact, like having those tools out there. How would that, when someone gets that help or a child gets that help, how would they form that relationship? Create something like instead of when they're coming from a father's home, they get the curriculum that will affect how their relationships going forward versus not having that. And then, of course, speaking on um, a kid that might have came from a father's home is a father themselves now. How does that relationship work out? Will that father who's that kid who's now a father, will they use these tools, or will they type or kind of like revert back a little bit if they don't get all the healing? Well, healing does, I know it doesn't happen just in one instance, but the journey of it, what if they stop? Will they, you think they'll go back to that type of
I
behavior?
think there will always be some type of awareness, right?
Okay.
And so whether they use that or not, it will always be like, hey, I know there's tools available. I just choose not to use it. And so that's a whole nother topic, right? Um,
Yeah.
but but a lot of times we see that the tools are not available, and we need to make them available. And then if they don't um, choose to use them, then that's a different approach that we need to take, to help that family cope, right? And the kids
Right.
cope with that parent that refuses to change, right? But there's still ways that you can handle it, and you'll be more mature enough to make better decisions and set healthy boundaries around even your parent. Like, yeah, I know you're my parent, but I understand these are the things that a parent should be doing, and you're not doing these things, and so I need to protect myself from you.
Okay. Yeah, I felt that.
And so teaching them those strategies as well on how to protect themselves when they need the parents' support, but there are certain things that they just not going to accept as a child, and hold their parents accountable for not putting them in that situation. So we're about out of time. Joe, do you have any last comments that you would like to share?
That other than this, I know it's an ongoing thing that's going on in the community, and I'm glad we have these platforms so we can reach out and just bring more awareness to like, hey, these are the sources. We're here. This is what we teach. Of course, with Heal and Help, we believe everyone has that superhero inside of them because they are their own hero, and we're here to give them the tools to understand the emotional intelligence. Of course, give them coaching or kind of like coaching when they do come from a fatherless home. What kind of effects that show up in their life, and how we can go about their own personal healing journey. But I think this
Yeah.
was a great topic on this.
Yes, yes, definitely. Well, we are glad that you tuned in. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow, share this information because it's so needed in our society at this time. And we're tap in with us at our websites, on social media, and ask some questions. If there's a topic that you want to talk about or want us to talk about it and address, put that in there in the chat for us. DM us, um, subscribe to our channels, and anything that we can do to help. This is what we are here for.
And click that like button.
Yes, yes, and notifications. Ding, ding, ding. Hit that bell. Y'all be blessed and have a wonderful time. Bye for
Take
now.
care, everyone. All right.